Imagine standing on a flight line in Hawaii, watching thousands of rounds of live minigun ammunition and rockets being dumped directly into the ocean.
Just massive amounts of ordnance right into the water.
Exactly, and all just to hide a logistical error. Today, we are looking at the 38-year legacy of the man who watched that happen and, well, decided right then and there to rewrite the ethical playbook of Army aviation.
It is quite the story.
It really is. So, Bob, if you're listening, I'm speaking directly to you today. You shared your manuscript with us, The Logistics of Flight. And our goal in this exploration into the source material is to hold up a mirror to your incredible journey.
Yeah, we are tracing this path from, a young recruit in 1980s Massachusetts to a master aviation logician, really hunting for those defining moments of a lifetime of service.
And seeing your backdrop already transformed to match the manuscript is just the perfect primer.
I had to do it. That vibrant, fiery orange desert sunset with the silhouette of the classic attack helicopter, it really captures the heat, the stakes, and just the sheer mechanical power we're diving into today.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because reading through this life's work, Bob, it is immediately obvious that this isn't just a standard military timeline.
No, definitely not.
It is a masterclass in the absolute precision required to keep both machines and moral compasses calibrated under extreme pressure.
That is a great way to put it.
And your foundation in that precision started in a recruiting office in Granby, Massachusetts, before throwing you into the intense forge of Fort Eustis to learn MOS 68J, aircraft armament repairer.
And the technical shock of that initial environment is just staggering.
I can't even imagine.
Right, because as an armament repairer, you are dealing with a reality where a single loose connection or like an uncalibrated relay on a high-speed electrical circuit, it doesn't just cause a maintenance delay.
It causes catastrophic, lethal failure in the sky.
Exactly.
To put this in perspective for anyone outside the flight line, it's like trying to perfectly calibrate the gears of a luxury watch.
Which is hard enough on a desk.
Right. But you have to do it while the watch is strapped to a roller coaster, covered in salt and shooting missiles.
That is the perfect analogy.
And soon after training, you were stationed at Schofield Barracks in Hawaii from 1980 to 1983, which, sounds like paradise on paper.
Oh, absolutely. A dream assignment.
But as a maintainer, you were constantly battling relentless salt air and humidity to keep those UH-1 Hueys and AH-1 Cobras from corroding from the inside out.
What's fascinating here is how that baseline requirement for mechanical exactness essentially rewires a maintainer's psychology.
How so?
Well, when your brain is trained day in and day out to spot microscopic failure points in complex systems, you can't just turn that off when you leave the hangar.
That makes sense. It becomes how you see the world.
Yeah, that hypervigilance inevitably bleeds into how you view human error and leadership. You start looking for the structural stress points in your chain of command.
Wow, yeah. And that absolute intolerance for mechanical failure forces a terrifying question. What happens when you apply that same rigid standard to the human beings in charge of you?
The human chain of command doesn't always hold up to that stress test.
And that clash is exactly what happened during the 1981 incident at Barking Sands.
Yeah, this was a pivotal moment. The unit was on a high-stress gunnery rotation on Kauai, and the crews got caught in a logistical bind.
Right.
Under the intense pressure of the mission, superiors ordered you and the crew to dump live ordnance directly into the ocean, just to clear the airframes quickly and hide the discrepancy.
The UH-1 logbook even went into the ocean accidentally, right along with the ordnance.
A literal sinking of the record.
Unbelievable.
And when the Inspector General opened a 15-6 investigation, which, for our listeners, is a formal, deep-dive military inquiry into misconduct, you and the armor shop guys answered honestly.
Because you knew the proper protocol, but you were following direct orders from superiors.
Exactly. And yet, the military justice system penalized the lower enlisted men heavily, fining you a full month's base pay.
Wait, really? A whole month's pay?
Yeah. Meanwhile, the commissioned officers who actually gave the illegal orders were handed Article 15s.
Which is essentially an administrative slap on the wrist that protected their salaries and their careers.
Right. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this dark spot taught a crucial lesson about unlawful orders. Your manuscript gives a nod to John McCain and John Kelly regarding this.
But, let's be realistic for a second. In a rigid hierarchical environment like the military, how does a young private actually find the courage to push back against a direct order without risking a court-martial?
In the moment, for a young enlisted soldier, it often is impossible. And your manuscript is very candid about that reality, Bob.
Because you just don't have the leverage.
No, you didn't have the leverage to fight a commissioned officer on a flight line at that age. But the pain of being scapegoated is what forged your armor.
You internalized that systemic injustice.
Deeply. It became the unshakable bedrock of your leadership philosophy. You vowed to demand ethical clarity and never, ever let your people hold the bag for a broken command decision.
Which meant you took control of your own ethical logistics. And you also took literal control of your career logistics, using that exact same analytical brain.
Oh, the stateside swap.
Yes. The legendary stateside swap is one of my favorite moments in the manuscript. You were stationed at Fort Campbell, but you really wanted to get to Fort Ord in California for a girl.
Naturally.
But the slots were basically non-existent.
Right, because a standard transfer relies on the Army dictating where you go.
Right.
But you bypassed the waiting game by understanding the mechanics of a DA Form 4187, which is a personnel action request.
So what's the loophole there?
Well, the loophole is that if two soldiers of the exact same rank and specialty agree to swap locations, the Army will often approve it because it solves a manning issue for them.
But you have to actually find that exact match out in the wild.
Exactly.
So you put a classified ad in the Stars and Stripes newspaper, found a Sergeant King in California who was looking to get to Kentucky, and executed matching DA 4187s.
You completely hacked the bureaucracy to swap yourself across the country.
It is just brilliant.
It's incredible resourcefulness under pressure, and you carry that exact same agency into the civilian contracting world.
Yeah, jumping to 1986, you transitioned to the reserves and took a civilian contract for Bell Helicopter in Sana'a, Yemen.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
You got to Yemen, spent 2 months evaluating the infrastructure and the maintenance pipelines, and realized the entire operation was a logistical and ethical mess.
A total disaster.
So you just flat out resigned. You refused to attach your name to a substandard operation, packed up and walked away.
You know, we so often frame quitting as a failure.
Right, especially in that kind of tough environment.
But here, walking away was a massive triumph of integrity. You refused to lower the standards you had established back at Fort Eustis.
And it's vital to note how your sense of duty was further solidified in 1988 with the loss of your father.
Yeah, that profound personal loss deepened your commitment to carrying forward a proud family legacy. It was about protecting your core values, no matter the cost or the paycheck.
By refusing to compromise in the civilian sector, you honed your expertise to such an elite level that when global security shattered on 9/11, the military didn't just want you back.
They considered you an emergency essential asset.
Which launches us straight into the golden age of attack aviation, right in the desert dirt.
The evolution of the technology you managed during this era, spanning from Desert Shield in 1990 all the way through Operation Iraqi Freedom, is staggering.
You were operating as a LAR, right, a logistics assistance representative.
Yes, working under the newly formed AMCOM. And a DLIR isn't just a mechanic. They are the highly specialized brain trust deployed to solve the catastrophic failures that aren't in the standard maintenance manuals.
They're really tough stuff.
Exactly. You were deploying to Taji, Q West, and Ballad Camp Anaconda.
And you didn't just understand the modern tech you were fielding, you deeply understood its lineage.
That is so key.
The manuscript details your study of the older UH-1C Huey model, specifically its heavy XM-130 chaff system, the M21 minigun, and the M5 40mm.
Because you understood how those heavy weapon systems shifted the Huey's center of gravity and stressed the airframe.
You instinctively understood the structural stress points on the modern Apaches when they were loaded up with heavy laser-guided optics and Hellfire missiles.
Right. Understanding that historical engineering logic allowed you to anticipate failures before they even happened.
Wow.
But this raises an important question. How do you balance the integration of hyper-advanced digital data buses and laser-guided optics with an environment filled with fine-grained desert sand, sand that literally destroys mechanical joints?
So what does this all mean?
It means you weren't just fixing helicopters.
Exactly. As the theater aviation maintenance contact leading a hand-picked brain trust of specialized LARs, you were rewriting engineering workarounds on the fly.
Sweating in uncooled hangars.
Right, fighting skin erosion on the aircraft and structural stress just to keep those birds lethal.
You were meticulously diagnosing and repairing the literal hearts of the Army's attack fleets in some of the most hostile environments on Earth.
And after decades of doing that, the ultimate irony struck.
It really did.
You returned home in 2008, and discovered your own heart was failing.
Yeah, a post-deployment physical revealed severe aortic stenosis from a bicuspid aortic valve.
Which immediately stripped you of your deployable status.
The days of hopping on transport flights to fix grounded fleets in combat zones were suddenly over.
But the poetry of this situation is profound. You spent your entire life ensuring that the military's most complex machines didn't fail their pilots.
And in return?
The medical field's most complex machine, the cutting-edge Da Vinci robotic surgical system at St. Joseph's Hospital, ensured your heart didn't fail you.
It's amazing. That advanced laparoscopic surgery gave you a second lease on life. It allowed you to heal and transition to your final chapters at Redstone Arsenal and eventually Fort Eustis.
And your final mission before retiring in 2017 wasn't a mechanical overhaul at all.
No, it was a human overhaul.
You took over as the COR and QAR at Fort Eustis for a 60-man contract managing the advanced threat aircraft trainers.
And for context, a TRR contracting officer's representative and a QAR quality assurance representative act as the bridge holding civilian contractors accountable to strict government standards.
And you walked into a completely toxic wreckage left by previous management.
The previous leadership culture relied on extreme micromanagement while completely ignoring baseline maintenance logic.
But because you remembered exactly what it felt like to be the private holding the wrench on the flight line, you dismantled that toxicity.
You held them strictly to the standard, sure, but you cleared the administrative runway so they could breathe.
You let professionals do professional work.
Exactly. Your final achievement wasn't a mechanical fix. It was administrative and cultural. It proved that ultimate mastery isn't just understanding the machines. It is understanding the people fixing the machines.
And that deep understanding allowed you to step into retirement with true peace. Back to a flourishing home life in the North Country.
With your wife thriving in the Watertown school system?
Your stepdaughter Kelly happily engaged.
Yeah.
And of course, a full canine platoon waiting for you.
Scooter, Bear, Chewy, and Katie Magoo.
A very well-earned homecoming. Bob, bringing this entire journey full circle, from finding quiet tenderness in a Spam omelet cooked by a bartender on a grueling night shift in Hawaii,
That was a great detail.
to retiring 38 years later, having fundamentally shaped the future of Army aviation logistics. Your story proves that true readiness isn't just about spare parts.
No, it's not.
It is about the relentless, uncompromising integrity of the person signing off on that maintenance log.
And, leaving Bob and our listeners with a final thought to mull over, in a world increasingly dominated by AI and automated diagnostics, your manuscript suggests that the most critical component of any machine will always be the human moral compass that decides when and how that machine is used.
That is a fascinating point.
Right, so as technology gets smarter, does human accountability become more obsolete or infinitely more important?